art, education, and career. These are some of the most important things that we live for. The students who are here with us today are at the threshold of choosing the next stage in life. The best decision is a result of knowing yourself and knowing what works best for you. Here at DAV, we do exactly that. I welcome the distinguished panel of speakers, members of DAV management, principal ma'am, panelists, teachers, parents, and my dearmost students to the 9th session of Career Guidance webinar series conducted twice a month. Please join us in invoking the power of God's blessings. Om Bhurvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're someone who is fascinated by shapes, colors, angles, and structures, if you're someone who is a creative thinker, if you're someone who believes in making your visions a reality, if you're someone who finds fun in learning, you are at the right place. As we already know, we are here to learn more about the career scopes of architecture. It is my pleasure to introduce today's panel of well-acclaimed and illustrious speakers, Shri Subharthi Guha, an eminent architect and urban planner, Shri Saktivel Ramaswamiji, a prominent architect and the managing director of KRR Group of Companies, and finally, Shri Rupender Kumarji, a DAV alumnus who is now pursuing final year of architecture at NIT Trichy. My humble pronouns to all three of you. It is with great honor that I introduce our first speaker, Shri Subharthi Guha. An architect and urban planner, Shri Subharthi Guha has an experience of designing across 20 countries and over 50 projects. He has worked alongside one of the biggest names in the field of architecture, Charles Correa, on numerous international projects and social redevelopment projects. For the information of the attendees, Charles Correa was credited with the creation of modern architecture in the post-independent India. Shri Guha joined Zaha Hadid Architects in London in 2010. Zaha Hadid being a major figure known for her intensely futuristic architecture of the 20th and early 21st century. Shri Guhaji's expertise lies across all sectors: residential, commercial, infrastructure, housing, and retail. He is the founder of the award-winning studio Concept ST Limited, which works on avant-garde buildings and city planning. He is an honorary professor at XJTL University and has taught in UK, USA, China, and India. We are indeed honored to have you with us, sir. Kindly enlighten us with your thoughts. We're all yours, sir. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And hello to everybody. Good evening there. And I'm going to share my screen and I will start the presentation. Please let me know if you can see it. Just one second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Sir. Perfect. So today, I'm going to briefly talk about architecture. As you know, it's a vast field. And at one point, how I started was I was somewhere in your age, at a very young age, looking at art, and I liked art a lot. But the transition, about the age of 13, I made from art towards architecture and thinking about it as a career. So very similar to where you are now, I was thinking about making this transition. And why? Because I mean, this is one of my favorite paintings, and the transition happened because, as beautiful as the painting was, it was confined in a canvas, and I was exploring, could there be a bigger canvas? I mean, if one could paint the world, I thought, and that led me to something on the left is one of my buildings today. So I'm going to briefly talk about what architecture I think it is. For me, it's just an idea, and everything starts with that idea. And you know, the universe is a very chaotic place. You know, if you look out into the night skies, or what we know at least of the universe, there's a lot of action and clashes and big bangs and everything going on. So there's a lot of chaos. And then there is a lot of silence. And in between all the chaos and silence, there is a place where we are, where there's an order, and there's higher levels of complexity. Complexity in nature, complexity in as we as living beings. And this gives us a sense, I would say, a sense of, so architecture for me gives it, we should think of it as making the planet richer than it is, and giving a sense of stability and comfort in this vast major universe that we are part of. And at the same time, move human aspirations to another level as we do it. And so that's my take on what I think is architecture. And this is how we started as apes, as chimpanzees, but we always aspired to building new forms, new shapes where we could live. And it's not just humans, but animals and everybody do a very similar thing. So every bird's nest is different, every shape of every cave is different. And we wanted as humans to move from what was early, let's say, shelter, which was temporary, to something of a bit of a more permanent order in architecture. So we have created these orders in different needs. For example, from the Stonehenge as a monument on the left, to something like the reflecting the skies and the pyramids of the way they're managed, to Colosseum for entertainment, for for resting places, for transportation, for anything, for houses. And we have moved along across ages trying to do that. And therefore, it creates a presence in time for us. So I left high school and I went in search of the new architecture, what it could be, which took me to some of the offices on the left, which was Charles Correa, Zaha Hadid, and my own. And I will take you a little bit through the journey of the work I've been part of. So as Gandhi once said, that the best way to find yourself or find what you want to do in, let's say, the field of architecture would be to lose in the service of the others. And that is how building works. You know, you create it, but then it's no longer yours to inhabit, but you leave it for the world. So this was one of the first buildings I was doing with Charles Correa at the time. This was in Lisbon. This is a Cancer and Heart Research Institute. It's very cutting edge. I worked on parts of the design. I helped with the modeling of the 3D. And this was built after I left the project. It was built, I think, finished in 2014. And this is some of the views where you can look into the distance towards the ocean. It's very close to where Vasco da Gama left the Belém Tower to come towards India. So it's a very much journey into the unknown. And there are other projects like this, which is the Ismaili Center that I was part of. This is in Toronto. And the roof here was quite challenging. You can see the construction image on the left and the final product on the right. Then as I move towards going into the practice in Zaha Hadid in London, there was a lot of research, funnily enough, on art, which I was also interested in. And we were doing these diagrams, these this idea of paintings that led on to even larger scales, even like cities. And therefore, when I joined, the office was completing a project like this in Glasgow, which is a transport museum. And you know, the ship is part of the museum, and it's a long, continuous, let's say, soup of a ribbon. So and then we were also starting to finish some of the projects in Guangzhou. This is the Opera House, and then habitable bridges, and this is in Spain, and also train station entrances. This was in Austria, Vienna, sorry, and then the Cincinnati Art Center. So these are some of the projects that were going on. Simultaneously, this is a factory as well, a factory with where the white collar and the blue collar workers, basically the people who work in the office and the people who manufacture the cars, they can see each other. It's not separate. So that was quite interesting and very, very different from how we saw factory people and office people as separate entities, towards something like a Maxi Museum, where it was very highly appreciated, very built in concrete in Rome, and the Olympic Aquatic Center in London in 2012, which was for the Olympics. And this is the interiors where the event was held. And today it's open to public and anybody can go there and swim, which is a good use of good, nice buildings created during a time of an event. And also things like this is an office building, which is a port authority in Antwerp, like a jewel on top of a heritage building. And also some small projects like the Serpentine Gallery, where the column and the light coming into the building integrates as one piece. And also projects like this, which are housing, which I was part of in Brisbane, and airport, which we recently finished in Beijing, where it's one of the largest airports in the world, the Daxian airport, and the internal light coming through the columns. It can be seen in a much larger scale here, that light, people, and the surfaces all behave as one entity. So saying this was a glimpse of what buildings can be like in different types, shapes, sizes. I will go through some projects on how we can build this. One of the buildings I was part of was in Milan. This is a tower. So there are 3 towers. We were only working on the tower on the left. And the tower is designed with a twist, and the twist is based on a rotation, which is unequal. And as it goes up, you will see a short video that how the curves of the growth of the tower, of the twist and the floor plates, are assigned. So this is the vertical points, how we distribute it. And then we create these floor plates based on the radiuses. And then the whole tower generated out of that curve. So I will let this video run and talk through you briefly of the technical bits, like this is how the glass has been divided. And because every floor plate is different, we try to optimize and make it feasible so that not everything is different, every glass is different, but as much as a repetition we can have. And so this is all the number of glass points that we would have. And then we start having the floor plates, is the 4x4 floor plates. And next comes the components of the central columns, the concrete columns. And then we will have the columns which are inclined. So they are floor to floor inclined, and they build the structure, outside structure. The center structure is obviously a core. And also we try to rationalize the chill beams, which is for the air conditioning that you have in the building. And then the ceilings of these, every floor. And together we have now we start building the facade. So there's a first layer of facade, which is the fire seal, which comes all the way to the top. And then it closed with panels of concrete on these both ends. And then we have a second, so this is the single layer glass in the middle. And lastly, you will see the outside skin, which is ventilated. So it reduces the impact of solar gains by having this double skin. So this is, let's say, the building, and we'll go in a little bit closer. You can see the two skins and how the maintenance happen in between the two skins, and the inside then is offices. So it's a good glimpse of how much detail, how much work goes into one of these buildings. And I thought then I will now show you that we took an axis, which was a metaphorical axis that was coming from the center of the city. And then you arrive in the first entrance, and the axis is then picked up and it disappears. That is why we have the twist. So there you go. This is the axis that's twisting above and disappearing. And that's a photo of me in front of the building. But moving on, there's a second building, which is a train station. So we had a vertical building, and now we are dealing with a horizontal building where we have a train station, which is very narrow site, and we wanted to give more space. So as you go up, it starts opening up. And this is a competition we won in Riyadh. And I worked on this project for a few years. And as you can see, these are some of the initial designs of the entrances. So it's very tight. So you have two layers of trains coming in, one that goes to the airport on the top, and one that goes onto the metro. And then you enter on the ground level and you have an interchange level. And so, and some places, when you don't have the trains, it opens up into this large entrance. So here is some of the rendering we do of the project. And here is the reality is currently being finished on site. Similarly, there's a short one here. This is in Macau. This is also currently on site. It's a 5-star hotel, and then a 4-star hotel, and then a water park. And its whole concept is based on folding. So it's a commercial project, but at the same time, we try to do something that is very origami-like and a theme. And this is one of the construction pictures of its current state in Macau. Then moving on, I think I started, even after doing all these projects, I started to think about a journey for myself as well, to explore a bit further. So I opened a company and started building with one of these projects, this one being one of the first one, where this lady is sitting, in a place designed not for sitting. So she's just enjoying the sun in Delhi on a winter day in front of an artwork. And the building we designed is in the part of a temple complex. And you approach it and you don't see any door or windows like we are used to seeing in most temples. So it's very quiet. It gives a sense of quietness. So I like that. And it also deals with climate. So you have the air coming on the left, which is the cool air because of the shade, and it goes out through this chimney, which is also part of the architecture on the right. And it's a natural passive cooling system. We designed it, we built it. This is the overall site. You can see the temple is in the center. The object that you see is on the right-hand side with some more blue areas, which we built. And then the left one here is yet to be built. It's a project on site. It has taken 14 years now working on this. So sometimes we have to be very patient as architects and keep working, even though it might not, you might lose interest, but it's good to keep the perseverance going. So next project I will show you quickly. It's got a voiceover, so I'm going to be quiet. You can listen to it. It's in Agra that we built.
Look for constant inspiration in nature, studying the continuity of its curves and the complexity of its surfaces. Translating such forms into buildings is a challenge. High-end computation can make it simpler to analyze and construct around the world. Forms with structures that are proud to reveal themselves. Forms that create new lived spaces.
So that was the project. You saw how we developed it from inspiration from a leaf into a 3D model into technical, let's say, computer-generated models to finally building it on site. And these are some of the pictures. Again, you see it's a little bit different. It does not have false ceiling. It does not have the windows like you know it. It is different in the way we see buildings as transparent, solid, and sometimes in the middle both. And we go into much further details. We go into branding and we go into showing that everything is integrated from cards. We also participate in competitions. We started participating. We won, this is in South Korea, where we won some prizes. It's a train station again. But the idea of this train station was to think of these hills in the background that you can see in South Korea. It's very hilly. And the idea of the geometry was replicating the hill in section, in plan, everywhere. So it's seamlessly connected to its nature. And these are some of the images of that project. This is a new project. It's in Pushkar. It's coming up this year. And this is one of the cottages, which has a wind catcher. This is also a very passive cooling system where the air comes in and it cools the air, and then you are in your resort and looking into the pool in the background. So this is the main building on the left that you see here. The cottage that you saw below are on here with private pools. And then there's a banquet area in the middle. This is the restaurant, which is a little bit floating on water. It's going to be on site very soon. Then we look into how art also translates. So an exploration in sketches, and they kind of build something like this, which is a house. And sometimes we look into the night sky, and where I started in the first few slides, and we develop a kind of a vortex, a canopy. This was in Hisar, and participate in other competitions like the National War Museum here. And this one is in UK, which is a community center, which is in the field of like an albatross wings spreading out like a bird. So this was most about the architecture I wanted to talk about, but I want to tell you that there is a bit more and beyond architecture as well that you can explore in this field. You can talk about some of the work that was going on in work at Zaha Hadid, which was art into the city, seeing the city as a model, and how the densities can be distributed in the city as a parametric model, which then was realized in One North master plan in Singapore. And then also something like this, which is in Tallinn, which is a port master plan, which is of smaller scale. And then also my personal interest in cities, and we participate in competitions where with space syntax, and we participated against Herzog de Meuron, and we got the creative prize. This one is a 154 square kilometer master plan in Lishui, China. And you can see the overall master plan and how we prepare it. It's beyond buildings. It has very much more complexity, transport, and we believe in the growth as polycenters, and also how we can create icons in a city level. So thank you all for listening. And this is me. If you have any questions, obviously we have Instagram and website and all that, but I don't think it's the end. It's a continuous journey. So I think we should all continue towards it. And thank you everyone for listening to me. And that is all from my end.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. it was reassuring to know that we are all trying to find order in this this world of chaos. And you've got us hooked with all the spellbinding buildings and with your architect's point of view, with an insider's point of view. Thank you so much, sir. I'm sure it has benefited all the attendees. It is your opportunity to type in your queries either in the chat box or in the Q&A box. These questions will be taken up after the session. Shall I move on to the next speaker?
Please do, ma'am. Please, yes, ma'am.
Our next speaker, Sri Saktivel Ramaswamiji, is a well-acclaimed architect and businessman. Sri Saktivelji completed his bachelor's degree in design from SEPT University, master's in architecture from the Architectural Association School in London, and MBA from the Sloan School of Management, MIT, Boston. He has also studied at Stanford Graduate School of Business and is currently pursuing doctorate in business administration. Ramaswamiji is also the managing director of the KRR group of companies. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you, sir. The floor is all yours. Please. Sir, you're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Radha ma'am, for calling me. And I was one of our students from high school, and it's really a pleasure to be a part of this session today. And I've put together a little presentation where I thought, what will the 16-year-old me would like to see aspiring architects? So that's where I'm going to start this presentation. That's the note of this presentation. Yeah, so I'm going to actually walk you through what my personal experience was in architecture. So as a student and involved in research in academia as an adjunct professor in SEPT University, and my professional work and how it helped me influence the business and how it has generally impacted me in my life. So that's what I'm going to walk you through today. So to give you a little background about me, so this is a picture from the 1800s. In this picture, my grandfather and my great-grandfather are together. Actually, I come from a family of craftsmen who make chariots.
Sorry to interrupt. Your screen is not shared, sir.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Ah, yes. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you, sir.
Can you see now? Yeah. So yeah, so that's what I was just going through. So I'm going to talk about different facets in my life and how my personal journey with architecture has been. So to give you a little bit of background, this picture is from the 1800s, and this picture has my grandfather and my great-grandfather in it. I come from a family of craftsmen. Our family was involved in making chariots, so we were well versed with working with different materials, say metal, wood, and so on. And my father was lucky enough to go to college, and in the year 1976, this is a factory that he started in Ambattur Industrial Estate, very close to your school. These were the different projects he was doing around that time. And these were a bunch of very hardworking people who were doing unbelievable things in the field of engineering. That's my father, who, when he started the factory. And it became a really international organization even at that time. From 1976, by the time of 1996, within a span of 20 years, he won the presidential award. So this is the kind of background I came from. And as a student, I was really interested in art. So I was very reluctant to even tell my parents that I liked drawings and paintings. And I used to go around Chennai painting buildings. I used to go to museums and observe sculptures. And I was a part of my workshop. So I see a lot of relatives working with craft. So that influenced me a lot. And in general, I was really interested in photography as a young student. I used to walk around with my camera, click pictures, and so on. So I was seeking where these interests could culminate and where it will take me. That's when I joined SEPT University, Ahmedabad. And that was a real turning point in my life when things started changing, and all my creative urges started to come out and make sense. So I want to talk about a little project which I did in college. I'm going all the way back because as students who are looking to do architecture, I think each journey is important as a student. So this is a project where I had to design a showroom for music instruments. So we had put together a concept board of how music influences our mind. And these are the drawings that were put up at my final jury presentation. So I was visualizing the space to be a very fluid space with a very ethereal feeling when you walk into the space. So these were the drawings that I did as a third year student in architecture. These are some of the sections. The concept of the store was that there will be walls which are fluid and which can move with music. So that was the concept. So I had developed a complete full-scale prototype of how this wall would move with music. So this is where I saw there was a huge information exchange. My engineering background, my craftsman background helped me to do this in school. And this was a really well appreciated project at that time. So there was a lot of influence from my background. And these were the images of the facades at that time. And this is the image of the wall that could move. The whole wall was engineered and done with the frequency of the music. The wall could actually dance along with the music. That was the concept. So then from there on, I go to doing my master's in London. And I did this course called Emergent Technologies and Design. And talking about research, when I was towards the final years in my undergrad education, I got really interested in how nature influences architecture, nature influences design. And so I delved a lot into the subject. So as much as I was trying to seek more meaning into how nature works, how nature can adapt, how nature is smart, and how nature is efficient. So all this led to furthering my research even further, and I published 2 books. One was called Biomimicry, and the other one was called Fiber Composite Adaptive Systems. So to touch upon a little bit of bionic smart adaptive systems, which influenced my research. So bio means life, and which is there in every scale in this planet. And Nick is like, so bionic is lifelike. So that's where you take, and also this is an anagram of biology and electronic. So this is a Rex man-machine robo, which is displayed in the London Science Museum. So talking more about bionics, there is a space where we don't no more differentiate between what is human and what is electronic. So it's really pushing the human efficiency to its boundaries. So what you call as smart systems is self-monitoring, analysis, reporting technology, where this kind of a technology is embedded in many materials which act smart. This is a flight that is designed by NASA, where the wings are very fluid and which can change shape according to different parameters from the environment. So my research led me more and more deeper. It was taking me a little bit away from architecture, but I kept on going with my queries. So looking at smartness, it's about how a system is influenced by the environment and how its boundary changes. That's what you call an adaptive system. This is what you observe in nature. This process in nature is called Stigma Morphogenesis. You see when you touch a touch-me-not plant, it closes to touch, or roots which wind around its support, and heliotropism when plants move towards the sunlight, how flowers bloom with for sunlight, and how the Venus flytrap traps a mosquito. So there's an amazing technology going on in nature. So my research was taking me deeper in those areas. This process was called morphomechanical computation. And if you look at a leaf, it doesn't only hold the shape of leaf, but it's also a part of the structure. It's also part of the geometry. It's also a part of the function. And even the life of the leaf is embedded into one material. So this query, like this is a cross section of a stem packed with xylem and phloem cells, whereas it acts also as a structure. It also acts for transporting nutrients and water. So it's an integrated. You cannot partition it in any way. So this kind of influenced a lot of what I was doing in research. In nature, you observe multiple levels of hierarchy. Nature has very little material, but which has manifest in very many different forms. So as we look deeper into the nanoscales of nature, you see this amazing intelligence that is hidden there, which is called emergence, which we see in many organizations, which is called self-organization, be it flocking of birds, be it school of fish, be it the organization on rock formations in nature, and be it a little Romanesque broccoli, where you see this amazing pattern with embedded mathematics in it, and or a river valley which gets flooded in a way which is completely decipherable, or the thunderstorms and the lightning, and you see amazing patterns which has some kind of an order in it. So these are the things that influenced me, and going further, I'll just take you quickly through how a single zygotic cell gets differentiated into multiple organisms. So whether an organism is unicellular or multicellular, the cells go through a series of gene expressions to reach a particular stage in development. This is a fruit fly, and this has got multiple sections of genes. Just by reorganizing these genes, we see multiple forms in nature. We see this is an embryonic development of a fruit fly. So just like how words make sense depending on where you put the THE, likewise, that's what happens in nature. And that has led to different forms, limbs and heads and thorax and legs. And it's just how you multiply those that is important. Here you see different limbs, and that has that has led to like billions of variations in nature. Here you see a butterfly which has got multiple patterns and just got multiple families, multiple generations of evolution, and so on. So just taking you through a set of images, you'll see how adaptation and evolution has happened over a period of time. If you see the DNA of humans, it's 90% similar to that of a cat, 80% similar to that of a cow, 75% to that of a mouse, and almost 50% to that of a banana. So it's just that how we are put together is different. And these images are pretty self-explanatory. I will just take you through them. So from mushrooms to jellyfish to schools of fishes. You see how the birds develop their limbs, and then the eyes, and how the eyes are similar in different species. So here, after this, so I was looking at different formats in which how this could be copied, and I came across this amazing company which makes bionic systems. It's essentially a material handling system, which has got pneumatics in place, and based on how these three chambers vary, it could mimic the movement of elephants. coming back to. So that had a lot of influence in what I was doing and my practice. And now you see the bionic ingredients are very small. It involves sensors, actuators, control unit, energy, and material, all integrated into one material base. So this is what I was going after and how I can develop intelligent adaptive systems. So I did a lot of experiments when I was in school in London in the Architectural Association. And we developed some prototypes of how we could control material, make it move with different parameters in the environment, be it temperature, pressure, and so on, humidity, and so on. So this research got published in many forums, and it got exhibited in many forums. This is an exhibition that was held in New York, where I presented my work on smart materials and adaptive systems. So this is another image of the exhibition. I was a part of the panel there, and there was a peer-reviewed discussion. This was taken to the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. We participated in another exhibition in Colorado, where we presented how such intelligent systems can influence. We did a lot of work on how dragonfly wings are working, and we took out that mechanism and learned a lot about pneumatics. So this is a lot about to what point I had come, and now I had to put use all of this. So these are some of the research theses I've guided in mathematics and how it influences design and architectural spaces. The next section is I go to academia, where I work as an adjunct professor in CEPT University for a while, and we had to put all these ideas to use. So there I conducted a workshop which lasted for about 3 months, where we developed some adaptive systems. So here are a bunch of students I was working with, and it was from different years, first year, second year, up to fifth year. And we put together a bunch of ideas. I roped in this company, Festo, who was headquartered in Ahmedabad, and they did a lot of training for our students. And we were understanding how the mechanics and the pneumatics works in these smart systems. And we came up with this installation, which is an intelligent installation, an art installation kind of thing, where these trees communicate with each other, which can monitor how many people walk through it. And based on that, they go happy or sad based on how many visitors they have. So this is another image of that art installation that we did. So this was called Talking Trees. I'll just show you a little video of what we did. That was one of the art installations that I got the students to do. And the next one is another interesting thing. It's called the unfurling fern. So just like how a fern So just like how a fern grows, this is a stop motion image of how a fern unravels itself in nature, how different structural things happen in nature, the osmotic pressure, how the nutrients move up the leaf in search of light and prosperity. And
sorry, I don't see the video.
You don't see the video?
So the video is not visible, sir.
Oh, is it? Okay, so I think the image was pretty self-explanatory. So it's just an image of how this fern gets, opens up in nature. So this one Did you see the other video with the trees?
No, actually, sir. We were like wondering if the video is supposed to play. We didn't see the video.
Oh, just a minute. I'll just,
The talking trees. We just saw the structures, sir.
yeah, just a minute.
Requesting attendees to please post your questions in the Q&A or chat box.
Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See.
Sir.
So this is how a fern unravels itself. And this was what we were trying to imitate when we were doing the installation. Such beauty that it's just a huge task to replicate something like this. And we somehow managed to scratch the surface of it in the 3 months that we had with a bunch of 15 students. I'll just show you. So this is the talking trees is, yeah, close that. So that means you also didn't see the Festo video?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, just a minute. So this is the talking trees. So that was the talking trees, and this is the Festo, how it imitates an elephant trunk. Yeah. So this was the installation once we kind of cracked how to do that unfurling fern. And this was the team of students which we worked on both these installations. I will show you another video of how that happened. So this was the So yeah, that was one of the projects I did with the students. And this is another project which is called the Material Studio. So as I was telling you, my influences in different materials with wood and metal and craftsmanship and the kind of smartness that I was trying to introduce within the material, I thought I should use a ground to get the students to work on smart materials. So we chose this material called lithopane, which is essentially an acrylic plastic. We were doing a lot of CNC engraving in it. So this also got the students introduced to how engraving happens on lithopane. it's got a very ethereal quality about it. The way light filters through it is amazing, and you can make beautiful textures with this material. So we were thinking of how do we encode data into this material. So if you see, this is a Rubik's Cube, which is used by blind people. So we thought, why can't we embed this kind of a knowledge in data inside the material? So the project was then driven towards a brief of making something for the blind people. So the brief that was given to the students was how an aquarium would be experienced by a blind person. So this is what you see with eyes. Like, can we replicate this with textures, with forms, something the blind people would enjoy? So then we actually made it into a reality. This project went on for, again, a span of 4 to 5 months, and we got sponsors to sponsor college students. And we made a team with the Blind People's Association. And I'll just show you a little video of how the students constructed this. This was in the year 2014. So all the design was done, and the students were building it in a span of about 10 days. Just fast forward a little bit. So yeah, so once we did that, this was the end product of that. This is an aquarium for the blind people, and we managed to get that kind of an experience in spaces, in forms, in textures that one could experience. So these are some of the views of the pavilion that we had put up, and we had here are some of the images. So this is the little structure. And our dean, Mr. Bimal Patel, who's designing the Rajpath in Delhi and the Vishwanath Mandir, he was there, very much there, and was inaugurated by the president of the Blind Association. It was a moment to cheer. We had an amazing exhibition to display how the students made this happen, and all the little models that we had done before this exhibition. So that's the students there. You can see me in the middle. And it was a very, very happy moment to be there with the students and to give them the experience of building something on their own. And it was published countrywide, and a lot of appreciation happened on the media. So likewise, so this research in biomimicry took me to many academic institutions to teach and to demonstrate what I had learned. So even in Anna University, we did another installation called the Reflexive Wall for their student festival. This is a wall which is a smart wall which can move and react to people's movement. So this is another bunch of students, and this is another successful installation that we did here in Anna University in Guindy in Chennai. So that's about my academic work when I was as an adjunct professor. And later I floated my own firm called Bio Inc., where I was looking at eco-friendly materials and exploring paper as a material to construct. So this was another process which culminated into an exhibit that I did in Delhi for the India Design in 2013. And we put together a whole system of how paper tubes can be connected together and made into a building. And this was my own venture. So I had my team who I was working with. And this also got widely published in design magazines in the country. So now, after all of this work, I had to come back to my family business because my father had invested so much of time and energy in the business, and he wanted somebody to take care of it. So it was a pretty different move that I had to make, but I did went back and get my business degrees, and I got back to the company, and I kind of turned around the company, gave it a new image, brought all the architectural knowledge I had, used it in infrastructure building for the company. Now the company, it was what you saw in the 1976, that place is now this place. This factory is spread about an area of 6 acres. We expanded in a great manner. We did a lot of interesting engineering projects. So these are the projects which we are currently doing in the factory. We introduced avant-garde technology, robotic welding, and we signed technology agreement with some of the great researchers in the country, CSIR, National Aerospace Laboratories. And here, when I was doing all of this, there was a great influence of architecture that helped me support and achieve all of this. So this is another equipment that we are doing. And when there was a requirement for oxygen, we floated a separate business called the KRR Oxygen, where we were supplying oxygen cylinders. We also delve into a lot of virtual reality in our projects. These are some of the large projects that we have installed in the country and abroad. We do a lot of work with overseas customers. So we have now customers all over the world, be it Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Italians. So name it and we have it. Now we are exporting to more than 30 countries. And last year, we won the export award from the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. So now the team, what it was in the 1800s, is now a team of 200 efficient staff and more than 300 workers, and we are supporting almost 1,000 people in very close quarters. So I think my background in architecture helped me kind of, understand how creativity can be injected into engineering. So it's a very different approach, and I really am glad that I went through this process. So in general, in life, what I see as what got me into architecture, what interested me, appreciating good work, creativity. So I got the opportunity to travel around the world, appreciate great things, click them into pictures, appreciate beautiful architecture, visit many museums, look at brilliant art, which I was always in awe about. And I mean, I don't know, it's so ironic. Subharthi also showed this same painting that I'm having a picture next to. And I got to see the masterpieces, the Mondrians and the Matisses and the Picassos, which is an inspiration no matter what you do. And I got to see the world's best sculptures and understand them and appreciate them in a way that I could have not if I had not studied architecture, if I had not stepped into architecture. And as I told you, I was interested in photography. That took me to places. I was able to make some amazing pictures in different parts of the world. And this has been displayed in many exhibitions in many places. And all of this has culminated into what I do now. though the work I do is very limited to my own residence, my own farmhouse, my own factory, but it gives me a lot of pleasure to kind of exploit what I have learned, my knowledge in architecture. So this is my house, which I built last year. So I kind of, you can see how life has influenced the architecture. So here is a set of steps, and this is the set of steps full of life. That's my little family, my son and daughter. And this is again my dining room, and that's again full of life. These are some spaces in my house. So those are my parents who was enjoying good design. So this is another space and how it comes to life. So these are my friends. I'm sure Radha ma'am would love this. These are my friends from school who visited me when they were here, and different spaces. And this is a slide which I built inside my house, which was made in the factory. So it's a hotspot for my kids. So they love to play here. So this is one reason why I love being in the intersection of engineering and architecture. These are little expressions which I do in everyday life, which I would have not done if I had not been a student of architecture. Like even the little puja that we do, I make sure that it's precise, it's perfect. It's, you know, in a way, it runs down to everything in life. Like even the little puja that you do, you make sure that everything is beautiful about it. I mean, I want to particularly touch upon all of these because it doesn't matter what you do or what you learn. It's going to influence you. It's going to change you. So just follow your heart. Just do what you're doing, and it'll definitely be good at the end. So this is our organic farm that we have, and I'm building this farmhouse over there where I'm trying to integrate the architecture, the engineering, the craftsmanship. It's completely made out of metal and terracotta and with local materials. So it's kind of a culmination of everything coming together over here. So it's made from local materials with craftsmen, and that also reflects how I handle my family. That's my son who loves Legos. And that's all the toys he makes with Legos. And he just won a national award on a poster making competition. My daughter has taken on painting, which I love seeing day after day. We just put together a little exhibition a couple of days back where she displayed all her paintings. And of course, I made great friends. That's Subharthi Guha with me. We went to the Stonehenge, and that's when we graduated together. Yeah, that's all the fun that we had, and that's how all the dots connected. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for taking us along in your personal and academic journey. It is truly inspiring to see how art and passion decides the course of someone's life. It was also interesting to see the patterns, the patterns of nature that we see around us all the time. And your work, an aquarium for the visually impaired people, it made us believe that we are indeed moving towards a more inclusive world. Thank you so much for that, sir.
Thank you.
Dear attendees, let me remind you again, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I'm sure you want to know a lot more. So please keep typing in your questions either in the Q&A chat or in the chat box. Thank you. Ma'am, shall we move on to the final speaker?
Sure, ma'am.
Yes. Next, let me introduce yet another outstanding alumnus that DAV has produced, Shri Rupender Kumarji. Having done his schooling from DAV Boys Senior Secondary School, Motherpare in 2017, he is currently pursuing his final year of Bachelor Architecture degree at NIT Trichy. He has already showcased his competence in designing both within the campus and outside. With his passion and skill set, we are sure that he will reach greater heights. Shri Rupender Kumarji, please share your thoughts about taking up architecture as a course. We have a question already, so please tell us about the various courses, the admission procedure, and the colleges, Yes, sir. It's all yours, sir. Thank you.
Good evening to one and all present here. Thank you, Ms. Shilpa ma'am, and thank you for the wonderful opportunity, Ms. Radha ma'am. So with that being said, and thank you for the panelists, Mr. Subharthi ji and Saktivel ji, for the presentation of architecture as a career and the various avenues that we can take forward as a student and myself as an undergraduate currently. So let's move on to seeing architecture as a course. To give a small introduction, so many of, I believe currently the artists are mostly students, and with the current question of what to choose after 10, we'll begin our journey of this presentation. So what stream to choose after 10th standard? The minimum standards as per the requirement of COA is that the eligible candidate to appear for architecture entrance examinations should be particularly of a science stream student currently, with maths, physics, and chemistry as subjects and minimum of 50% aggregate in scoring. Earlier, up to 2015, if I'm right, there was allowance for commerce and humanity students to appear for giving architecture examinations. But this was changed with the 2018 amendment, where the council sought to make the course technically sound. And if not for a high school program, it is also fine to pursue a diploma with 3 years validity and mathematics as a compulsory subject. Similarly, 50% marks is compulsory. In my journey as a student from 10th standard, I had option to choose between computer science, biology, and engineering graphics, being one of different programs that is offered in DAV group of schools that is not found in many other schools. So I chose engineering graphics as one of my subjects along with the science stream group, as it helped me to gain the perceptive knowledge that is very much necessary as a first year or a beginner of architecture course. The subject dealt with the knowledge of perception, the understanding of shapes, forms, and all other diagrammatic problem with solutions that are very much needed for one's understanding. Moving further, I'll just give you a brief introduction about the entrance exams that are available for appearing to pursue a career in architecture. The very well-known entrance exam is NATA, which is actually conducted by the Council of Architecture, and other examination patterns follow the guidelines as prescribed by Council of Architecture and are similar to the question paper pattern of NATA. So the NATA admissions are required for colleges all over India, except for the IITs, NITs, and SPAs. For NITs and SPAs, which are the other public lines that are available for studying, the examination that one has to take is JEE Mains Paper 2. While there is Paper 1 for engineering, the Paper 2 focuses on Bachelor of Architecture and Bachelor of Planning courses. And for admissions into IITs, one has to take up an examination called Architecture Aptitude Test. That is the for last stage of examination once one has cleared JEE Advanced. And for students of NRI background, there is a special quota called DASA that is especially for admission into NITs and SPAs across the country. Previously, the DASA quota was based on SAT examination scores, but now it has been mandatorily required to have a JEE-based scoring to appear for this DASA quota allocation. And apart from all these examinations, several private colleges have their own entrance exams such as VAT for VAT JEE and SRM for SRM JEE. I'll give you a brief of the pattern in the upcoming slides. So coming to the NATA exam pattern. The assessment categories will be on diagrammatic reasoning, numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning, inductive reasoning, situational judgment, logical reasoning, and abstract reasoning. While diagrammatic reasoning and numerical reasoning are separate sections, the other sections combinedly are coming under logical aptitude tests. So the number of questions that will be asked in the NATA question paper will be of 125 questions, and the marks total will be of 200 marks, with a pass percentage of 80 marks minimum to be eligible to appear for counseling in various other architecture colleges. So the type of questions will be from multiple reasoning questions to multiple selection questions to preferential choice questions and numerical answering questions. The language is basically in English medium, and a marking scheme will be from 1, 2, or 3 marks. There's no negative marking in NATA exam paper. And with that being said, the next slide will talk about JEE Mains paper 2 pattern. So this examination is taken for admissions into all NITs that provide architecture as a course, as well as the SPAs that are primarily dedicated for architecture and planning studies. So the number of questions in this category is of 82, that subdivided into mathematics, aptitude, and drawing. The assessment categories are quite similar to that of NATA. And the overall questions has been upgraded to 400 marks, while when I was writing, it was only for 360 marks. And during the COVID scenario, there was a dropout of drawing as a question, but aptitude and mathematics were there. But with the current planning scenario, the National Testing Agency has said that drawing will be included in this year's paper as well. So math and aptitude will be similar to what we find in JEE Mains paper 1, and it covers the subjects within the 11th and 12th mathematics portions. And the aptitude questions will again test our logical skills and as well as our architectural knowledge with various questions based on both categories. And the drawings questions will be based on our understanding of perspective drawing, our understanding of how forms combine to create a new form, and so on and so forth. The languages for this type of examination is available in English and Hindi options, whereas for especially from candidates from Gujarat, the language is Gujarati as well. And the marking scheme is for every correct responses, there will be 4 marks awarded, whereas for every incorrect responses, 1 mark will be deducted. One understanding that one should have is that the marks detected will be from the marks that is scored and not from the marks that is not being scored. For instance, if you are scoring the 4 marks in one of the questions and other question is incorrect, the -1 will be reflected from the previously earned 4 marks. So one has to attempt this question paper with careful understanding and very precise understanding of the subject. And no marks will be awarded for unaffected questions. Moving further is the JEE Advanced Architecture Aptitude Test. For one, if one is interested to study architecture in the prestigious IITs that offer architecture, with being that said, are Kharagpur, Roorkee, and currently BHU Varanasi has also started a program on architecture. So for getting admission into the IITs for architecture, one has to clear the JEE Mains paper 1, that is specifically for engineering, with the qualification marks being enough. Proceeding further, one has to attempt both the JEE Advanced papers 1 and 2 with getting a proper cutoff score. Apart from once the JEE Advanced results are announced, the architecture aptitude test portal will be open. So one has to enroll themselves for the architecture aptitude test, and it will be conducted across the 7 zonal IITs, IIT Madras, from IIT Madras to IIT Bombay and Delhi and so forth. The architecture aptitude test pattern is not structured and it varies from year to year, but it tests especially on the drawing skills, with the logical and mathematical skills being previously tested in other JEE papers. So some of the categories of drawing assessment in this type of examination is of freehand drawing, geometrical drawing, 3-dimensional perception, imaginary aesthetic sensitivity, and architectural awareness. So these are primarily our examination options within India, and for abroad, the examinations as such are not that, but one has to attend SAT if it is for USA-based colleges, and for UK and other options, it's basically important for us to qualify the language requirements. For UK, it is IELTS, and for other countries like Germany, one has to have a particular understanding of German language to a particular level of at least A2 or B1. And this is list of top colleges offering architecture as a degree in India. This list is based on NIF ranking and it is subjected to change with the college performance varying from each and every year. And I would also like to add this point that all the colleges that are verified by COA are actually good and well enough to pursue an architecture as a course, and this ranking allows not the criteria for judgmenting or choosing a college. So I would request each and every candidate, whether a parent or the student present here, to visit the COA government website and refer the list of colleges that are being verified by the COA, and to get a proper understanding and to do a self-research, which is always essential and is good for their own understanding. So some of the colleges that are being currently listed as good performing in the NIS ranking, which is being a reliable government-backed source, are IITs, that is Kharagpur, Roorkee, and Banaras University in Varanasi. Then the SPAs that are in Delhi, Bhopal, Vijayawada. NITs being Tiruchirappalli, Calicut, Hamirpur, Nagpur, Bhopal, Rourkela, Raipur, Jaipur, and Patna. Except Ahmedabad, which is one of the foremost and well-sought institutions in the country. And Anna University, which is well known for us, being in Chennai, and it's affiliated colleges as well. Sir J.J. College of Architecture is one of the oldest institutions in India and one of the first institutions set up in India, and it has produced a large number of Indian-based architects. And other colleges being Jamia Millia Islamia in Delhi, Manipal University, Tyagaraja College of Engineering in Madurai, BMS College in Bangalore, College of Engineering Trivandrum, and BITS Ranchi. And a few list of colleges that are offering Bachelor of Architecture in abroad are MIT in United States, Welsh in Netherlands, UCL in United Kingdom, ETH Zurich in Switzerland, Harvard University in United States, University of California in United States, Politecnico di Milano in Italy, Manchester School of Architecture in United Kingdom, University of Cambridge, United Kingdom, and EPFL, Switzerland. So these are based on the QS rankings, that is one of the well-known sources, but there are several other colleges as well. So I will just come to the structure of the course and share my experience as well. So the structure of course is based, as we know, it is for a 5-year period of timeline, and the first year is basically the foundation. So in this first year, what happens is the concepts of design and basic architectural fundamentals are laid, and it is somewhat similar to what we can see in other similar design courses, where the design fundamentals are inculcated into the individual's mind. So there is a misunderstanding that architecture is only art. It is much beyond, and it is also within. And in this first year, there is a noted number of people to getting confused with this and trying to drop out as of this confusion. But architecture as a course begins once after we cross this stage into the second year. So the second year is when we are introduced into the concept of architecture, from structure to materials and so on. And it is in third year we transform our knowledges further and deep into the technical aspects of services, more for the details of structures. And in this period of third year, we get an option to learn about other allied fields of design as well as like interior design, graphic design, computational design, and so on. So with all the technical knowledge that has been gathered so far, the fourth year is one of the very much known year in architecture, is being the practical training. During this practical training period, which is in some colleges for 1 year period or some other colleges for the 6 months period timeline, one is allowed to go and get an internship and work in an architectural practice, a studio or a firm across India as well as abroad. So this is the period when the student gets to interact with architects and gets to know the reality of architecture as a field. And the last year is the final year where all the practical and the technical knowledge is being put into test in the form of theses, where one has to come up with his or her own project, and that showcases their understanding of their knowledge. So that has been gained throughout the years. Also within this 5 years, there are several avenues of competitions, workshops, research options, and so on for the students to explore and gain knowledge. Clubs and other activities are also advised to be a part of extracurriculars that one can take up and learn further and get a good knowledge. For example, if one is interested in computer science based coding or other similar avenues and want to pursue a career in architecture as well, there are several options to do the same. And so is an example of what we saw in biomimicry. And as a course, most of the learning happens within a space called studios. While technically most of the colleges have only classrooms and laboratories, architecture schools have a studio, classroom, and laboratories, and so on. So the studio is where most of the design knowledge is being taught and experimented and evolved. And the studio has been set up on a similar lines of what one will be facing in practical life while working in the firm. So what happens is every year or every semester, one is introduced to a design problem where one has to come up with a solution to the problem. And one of the beauty of this subject as whole is that there's no one particular solution as a exact correct solution. Each and every individual is capable of generating more than one or two solutions for a given problem. So this is being evolved in this period of design courses, and this is what will reflect in our practice as well. And there is a saying that architects are called master of all trades. That well suits within from learning to practical stage. Coming to the student body organizations, architecture as a community has been well established and well connected right from the student ages. While the Council of Architecture focuses on the practice and professional part, there are student organizations like National Association of Students of Architecture, Ethos, and the student member body of Indian Institute of Architects that focus on involving students and raising their voices and their problems and concerns, as well as in educating them with workshops, conventions, several other lecture programs, competitions, and so on and so forth. So this is to create a networking solution for the students and this helps them to connect with several other students from any part of the nation and even internationally. And as said earlier, while researchers and internships are one of the very well-known aspects in all fields, architecture competitions as well play an important role in helping us to exploit and explore our knowledge and much further. So every year there are several competitions that happen for architects as such, even from government side and private side. So governments themselves come up with several other project proposals to construct and design and give a solution for the existing problems that prevalent in the country and even internationally. So these are one of the golden opportunities for the students to learn, unlearn, and explore more into the field of architecture. So with that being said, let us assume that we are having a BR degree in our hand now, and let us see what are the post-completion options. So generally, the options that people pursue are either masters or going for a practice. Whereas architecture also provides a flexibility for us to change our careers within some other fields of design or even more. So that flexibility is present within this course. And if we are going for a master's, the other avenues that are opening for us are going into research and teaching professions. And while coming to practice, several architecture undergraduates choose the option to either go for immediately masters or to work for a period of 2 or 3 years to gain experience and then pursue masters and come back to practice. So this way they are able to experiment their gain knowledge in practical situations as an architect and are able to further develop themselves. So once when we are coming to a practice, the options are either we can be self-employed right at the beginning itself of our architecture career, because architecture provides us that option. And as architects, our curriculum is such that it inculcates the entrepreneurship thoughts within us right from our beginning of our course. So we can start as a self-employed architect as well as work for an architect or develop companies. So while practicing, the options that we have are as architects are to work primarily as an architect or to be a designer on several avenues of designing fields, or to act as a project manager who is known for coordinating between building projects, to go into the field of journalism as an architectural journalist, or to start as an entrepreneur or an urban planner or a rural planner who works well within the government and in policy making. So these are some of the master's options that are available in architecture currently in India. And one of the ways to achieve it is to write GATE exams and CED exams for design-based courses and GATE for other courses. So the options being said are MArch in general that focus on general application of architecture, then MArch in interior design, MArch in landscape design, MArch in urban design, MArch in computational design that focus on computational aspects of architecture, MArch in sustainability. Sustainability is being one of the very much sought options in our country right now to have a sustainable environment and sustainable future as well. MArch in artistic conservation, which is a study that is known to help us to preserve the artificial monuments and other spaces that are artistically renowned. MArch and real estate focus on real estate developments and artificial point of view. And housing, MArch and housing is a provision of study that helps in government bodies to come up with housing solutions for the needy. Planning and urban planning or town and rural planning focus on the town planning aspects, with transportation also being one of the fields where transportation could be related to metro planning or more other government-based transportation projects. So when it comes to management, the options are building engineering and construction management, which is provided by the NICMAR Institute of India. That is also a public body, especially for project management related courses. And as an architect, we can pursue a career in design. So the fields within design are into product designing, UX and UI designing that deals with the interface of several other apps and websites that we see today and use. MDes in graphic design, MDes in digital game design. So currently there has been a boom on the topic of metaverse and so on. So, and it has been well discussed and debated about architects' role in these aspects as well. So it is an upcoming field for us to explore much into the avenues. And these are some of the unique master's options that are available in abroad, which are related to architectural history, urban regeneration, MBA in design strategy, MTech in building energy and performance, MSc in geomatics, which focus on the geometrical and geographical resources of a site that could be viably used for designing the spaces, MA in spatial performance and design, MA in arts, history and criticism, MSc in construction management and law, MSc in biodigital architecture, MSc in design theory and pedagogy, MSc in building information management, which is a well sought field within architecture and construction industry, MSc in digital architecture and robotic construction, MSc in naval architecture and ocean engineering, MSc in architecture acoustics, and MSc in architecture writing. Also, management of public affairs is one of the fields that architects tend to go to get into the fields of public policy making that works where the one person works with the government in policy making and related affairs. So the well sought destinations for masters in abroad are being said UK, United States of America, Germany, Netherlands, Singapore, and Canada. And the scholarships and the grants that are available for pursuing architecture as a career, as a course as well. Within India, one of the foremost associations are National Scholarship Portal that has been sponsored by the Government of India. And this scholarship portal has listed various other scholarship programs, not only for architecture, but for every other degree for each and every individual. So scholarship, that's generally a misconception that scholarships are for meritorious students, but it is for everyone. For an instance, if there's a girl child who is a first graduate from a family, there are several scholarship schemes for the girl child to promote the girl child education in India. So I would request the attendees to have a thorough research on the scholarship part as well while applying for colleges to gather first more knowledge on these aspects. For persons interested to study architecture abroad, there are scholarship schemes called as Sanskriti Gedi Scholarship, which was focused on architecture as studies. Swami Dayanand Educational Fund, that is for USA and for studying in USA. DAV is for Germany, that provides scholarship for 25 students each year to study in Germany for full coverage of their costs and stay. An Erasmus program is for studying in European Union and the Schengen region. Kate Neil Kinley Memorial Fund is for specifically for architecture course. Royal Institute of British Architects also is a well-known association in Britain for functioning and regulating the architecture as a course. And they have come up with the Wren Insurance Association Scholarship for pursuing studies in the UK. And there are several college-sponsored scholarships, grants, and financial aids in each and every public and private colleges abroad as well as in India. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rupender, for that detailed input. Much appreciated. Thank you for also talking about the scholarships and grants, which is sure to benefit most of us. Next, let us move on to the second part of the session where we take up all the queries, all the questions all the attendees have posted.
Request Rupender ji to stop
Close
sharing
the
your screen.
screen.
Stop
I'm
sharing.
just looking for that option.
So it's on the top, sir.
You have the green color. I can stop it, sir. Want me to do that?
Yeah, can you please do it? Sorry for this inconvenience.
No problem.
Ma'am, shall we move on to the question
Yeah,
answer?
let's go on to the Q&A. We have some question and answers in the chat box as well as in the Q&A section.
Yes, ma'am. Some of the questions are already answered with all the presentations. I think one of the questions was about the admission procedure to IITs and NITs. I think that is already answered with, about the entrance exams. And then what are the budgets for these buildings?
I think this question is directed to Sri Subharthi ji.
It varies. It varies depending on the scale, on the country we are building in, and also the context and the engineering of the buildings. So in one of the buildings, I showed you how we made, even though the building was twisting and curving, but we managed to do a lot of typical glass modules, which economizes the building. So it is a huge variation. So it's difficult to answer what the budget is. And even in India, when I do some work there, we have a lot of variation. So for example, a building can go from 2,500 rupees a square foot to, if you're doing a 5-star hotel, there is no end to that limit. It can go to 10,000 rupees a square foot or even 15,000. So it all depends on the client and what you want to do. And so it's a lot. But I, just to give you my take, usually when you are designing something as an architect, you don't want to, my personal feeling is that you don't want to think about the budget too much. You want to do what is right. You know, as I say, you know, you have to do what is right, and then you will figure out a way to make it work. And that is the role of the architect, to make it work, to fit the brief, to fit the client's need. And also sometimes the client doesn't know what he needs. So it's also your job to tell him that this might be better, this might be, you know, maybe you need to invest a little bit more, maybe you need to phase it out. So all that is also part of your task. So I can't give a concrete answer, but this is the best I can give.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Next question we have is, what are the colleges you would recommend outside India? I think any of the speakers.
I think Mr. Rupender has already covered the whole thing, Shilpa. He has covered about the various universities and the grants.
Colleges outside India.
Actually, I have something to say over here.
Please, sir.
Yes,
See,
sir.
what happened was I did my schooling in TI school in Ambattur. And it was actually my principal, Mr. Venkatakrishnan, who kind of supported me when I want to do architecture. I was very scared to even to go and tell my dad that I want to enroll myself in architecture. And at that time, the principal called my dad and he said, this child, he's really interested in art. He wants to do architecture. So I joined a college, a private college in Chennai. Actually, I finished 3 semesters here. The college is located in Kattangulattur. At that time, I don't know, the course was not very well defined over there. And of course, I was topping in all the subjects. I was very happy. But if I was topping, I realized maybe this is not the best place to do it. It can't be so easy. You know, it has to be tougher than this. So after a year and a half, I kind of seeked the best places to do. And then I applied to CEPT University I did my entrance exam. Actually, I also traveled to Delhi. I wrote my entrance exam in SPA Delhi. And after about writing exams to 3 to 4 different places, then I got placed in the School of Architecture in SEP. But today, Mr. Rupender, who's introduced everything to you, he should be really hats off to you, Rupendra, because he's put the complete panel out there for you. He's completely covered what are the colleges in India, what exams you should write. If you were there, I would have saved 1.5 years of my life.
Thank
When
you,
I was
sir. Thank you.
16. Yeah. So,
But that shows your maturity, sir, to discontinue after 1.5 years and then go. That shows that you're a goal getter, sir.
Truly said.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I think you guys have excellent information in front of you, and of course, the internet was not so good at our times in 1999. So please be well informed where you apply, because to be very honest, there are very few institutes in India which you can get in and shine in the field. There are very few, very limited. Probably you can count with your fingers. And the ones who really want to do good in architecture, try to get into those institutes. I don't want to name them, but yeah, there. Subharthi, you want to name a few?
I would also like to say a little bit away from institutes. Some of the famous architects, Le Corbusier, Tadao Ando, they never went to university. But they learned. I think it's very important that everybody should have the attitude that you want to learn constantly, no matter if you have graduated from the university or you're going into one, or you have finished a PhD. What made them great architects was they for Tadao Ando, which I mentioned, yeah, I'll just tell us, if I may take a minute to talk about his work. He did not go to university. He went to a library to study books of Corbusier and concrete, and went there every day learning in the library, because he couldn't buy the book, and became one of the masters of concrete on today. So I think universities are great. I mean, I went to universities. I went to SPA. I went to the AA, where I met Saktivel. So they can also be great. But a lot of the people who studied with me do not practice architecture anymore at all. And they have changed careers. So when you select a career, make sure you really want it. And even if you make it to the great universities, it's great. If you don't make it, don't stop. Don't stop if you are interested in it. Just keep going, and you'll find some way to go through. Because I don't expect everybody listening today will get into the top university tomorrow. So I think if you like it, if you like architecture, whatever university you get in, just continue your work. And if you keep learning, you will shine wherever you go.
Well said, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to also add a little story over here. There was this architect called Jeffrey Bawa from Sri Lanka. He was he was a lawyer, and he was great at his practice. He has this amazing, successful practice in Sri Lanka. He was about 42 when he decided to do architecture, and he just closes down his practice. He goes to London, the same university where myself and Subharthi went. He studies architecture at the age of 42, comes back to Sri Lanka, and then continues to practice architecture. And till the end of his life, he is one of the Pritzker winners. There are these amazing buildings built by him in Sri Lanka all over. It's completely influenced the architecture of Sri Lanka. So even such things happen. So your life can completely turn midway. Who knows?
Well said, sir. Is mathematics required to become an architect? Is one of the questions that have been posed.
I would love to answer that question. Honestly speaking, I was a very average student in school. I didn't understand what all this differentiation and integration, what is this, how is it going to apply to life? But I understood math when, after joining the School of Architecture, after understanding what is this Romanesque broccoli, what is this geometry that is there in it, I need to crack it. From that perspective, I learned math. But that's the very interesting perspective. Yes, there is a lot in common between architecture and math, but not in the traditional way we know it. We should be able to make amazing connections, which are very important. Surprisingly, after finishing architecture, I guided a master's thesis in mathematics of how it's related to design. But that's what you need to really look at the subject in a different way. But it's not technically, it's not a very important point required for architecture. Or Subharthi can add to it.
I think Rupender already said it, that an architect is not a scientist in a way. He knows something about everything. So yes, you need to know a little bit about mathematics. You need to know a little bit about structure. So you need to know a little bit. You can't ignore, because as you can see in all his entrance exams that he has listed and the kind of questions, it's a lot to do with aptitude and reasoning. And it was the same in my time. And yes, now it's very, there's a lot of entrances and everything. But the principle is still the same, that there's a lot of aptitude, and aptitude is, I think, very critical in architecture. So an aptitude involves everything. It's like a test of general knowledge, but a practical test of general knowledge that you can have visually and mentally. So I think, and maths maybe is involved in a certain way in it. So it's not, you have to be a great mathematician, but you need to know a little bit about it.
I would like to add something on this aspect as well. So mathematics, as both of them said, is applied in a way of design thought, and it has been reflected in their works also. For example, Subharthi Guha sir, he showed us the configuration of how the floor plates are changed to give up that structure in Milan. So that's where we can see the application of how mathematics is changing into design. And as well, in Saktivel Ramasamy sir's presentation, he showed us that moving wall facade system, right? So that also involves certain mathematical calculations that makes us to visualize how that thing turns out to be in practical life. So the technical aspect of mathematics, though it's not that much into the subject, there is a practical understanding of this mathematics that has been applied everywhere, that I would like to add on this discussion.
Thank you, Rupender.
Thank you, sir.
I think the bottom line is everyone should know a little bit of everything, especially for the aspiring architects. Right. Yes. Thank you, sir. I think we can take up one more question.
Sure, ma'am. There's, I think, one more left.
What are the differences between a career in architecture, design, and civil engineering? Are they all different?
I think this is addressed to Subharthi, sir.
Oh, it's to me. Okay. It's a tough question, but I'll try and answer it a bit more simpler. I know there is a categorization of civil engineering. There's a categorization of interior design or furniture design, and there's a categorization of architecture. But I think the goal for all of them is the same. I mean, that's how I started the lecture. The goal is to create something. And I think no matter which of these aspects you go, for me, the goal doesn't change. So you may be contributing in a different level as an engineer. And you want to find the like-mindedness of the engineers together with the designer, together with the architect. So it's a very hard question because all the separations created are our own in the society. But I think as a goal, it's the same. So if you join civil engineering, you will land up on project sites, not as a designer, but you can influence a better design by your involvement and your expertise. So I think how to answer this, I don't know how to answer this very straightforward. I mean, I'm always thinking about the holistic aspect of buildings and design. So in my head, everything goes to the same direction.
I mean, Subharthi is obviously always very poetic in the way he talks, but I would like to say something over here. See, if you want to approach design from the creative perspective, then you should choose design or architecture. If you want to choose, if you want to approach it from the technical aspect of it, then you should come from the civil engineering aspect of it. But this exposure of knowing a little bit of everything and being a master of everything, that could happen only through probably design and architecture. So to put it simply.
Thank you for that, sir. Ma'am, I think we have taken up all the questions.
Yes, ma'am. How there's one question which is very simple. It says, how is art connected to architecture? I think all the three panelists have already contributed to that. If we are good with all questions, any more questions that you have spotted in the chat box, ma'am, or in the Q&A, which is left
No, ma'am,
unanswered?
it's repeated. Chat box, same questions are
Repeated.
Repeat. Right, ma'am.
Big thanks to everyone who asked the questions and to the speakers for taking out the time to answer them. Now that we have reached the end of the session, may I request Principal Mrs. Radha Subramaniam ma'am to kindly propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you. Namaste, Shilpa ma'am. Thank you all. Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings sense for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. I express my heartfelt gratitude to Shri Subharthi ji for having taken time out of his busy schedule to motivate students. Sir, the third law of thermodynamics states, entropy of the universe is ever increasing. Entropy is disorderliness. But then your presentation today, the buildings, the astounding opera house, the train station, the art center seems to challenge the third law of thermodynamics. Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation and the talk and your journey of your discovery from an artist to an architect. Thank you very much, sir. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Shri Saktivel ji. Sir, I'm sure our students are enthralled their family's journey from 1800 to now as craftsmanship. And also the concept of moving walls, moving to the sound of music is intriguing indeed. And the aquarium for the visually challenged, sir, is very heartwarming. Thank you very much for your presentation. Last but not the least, I would like to thank Shri Rupender ji for your very precise inputs about the various examinations, the components of the assessments. Students need to keep in mind, students who are interested in pursuing architecture as a career. Thank you very much, sir. Children, attendees, frankly speaking, there is an artist, an architect lurking in every heart. The quintessential man is a great worshipper of beauty, and his aesthetic sense continues to produce greatest wonders. कहते हैं, भवन निर्माण, शिल्प विज्ञान, वस्तु कला की है पहचान, सभी कलाओं की है ये जननी, पंच तत्वों को लेकर है ये बनी. Hence, delve deeper, explore the artist and the architect in you, and convert your passion into your profession like these gentlemen have done. Wishing you all the very best in all your endeavors. Thank you one and all. Before the curtains come down on today's webinar, I would like to announce that the next webinar scheduled for 5th of March is about career options in the field of journalism. Thank you one and all. Namaste.
Thank you.
Dr. Balakrishna Doshi, the first, yes, Rupendra ji?
Sorry to interrupt. I actually have some documents to be shared in this group that regards about the entrance exam and the colleges. Can I just share it in the chat box?
Yes, sir. You can put it in the chat box. Shri Ashwin ji will put it in the website. That'd be
Sure.
great, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I'll do it.
Yes, ma'am. Shilpa ma'am, you were saying something?
Dr. Balakrishna Doshi, the first Indian to win the Pritzker Prize, which is known as the Nobel Prize for Architecture, once said, "A marriage between personal creative urge and fulfilling unspoken dreams of clients is called architecture." With that, I sign off, only to meet again for yet another incredible session on 5th March. Till then, let's strive to widen our horizons and live life to the fullest. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste all.
Thank you very much.